Hey guys, how you doing? Today I'm going to be doing a video on the Curtis Knives F3 right here. This is a knife that I picked up from Spirit of the Blade that I really didn't think I would like, but I actually really like this knife. And I'm going to be talking about why, and I'm going to be talking about why this knife is actually going to be leaving my collection, even though I do really like it. So first, let's do a quick size comparison. This is the Curtis F3 Medium. And just to show you the size on the mediums, this is a large Sebenza right here. And as you know, large Sebenzas have like a 3.6 inch blade, something like that. The Curtis F3 Medium has a 3.25 inch blade, which I actually did not know. Even though I handled this knife, I was thinking as a 3.5 inch blade. I wasn't really paying attention too much to the length. But since it was a medium, I thought that it was like the old F3s where the medium was a 3.5 inch and the large was a 4 inch. But no, now the medium is 3.25 inch. And the large is still a 4 inch blade. So anyway, all I really have to talk about on this knife, normally I divide my reviews up on excellent, and that is what is done particularly unique or perfect. The good is good execution on nice features. The fair is something that's not outstanding and can be done better, and poor is something that's objectively bad. And except for one exception, all of this knife is either excellent or poor. So we're going to start talking about the excellent right now. And first off, this is a custom knife. This is a, like the, let me pull it out real quick. It's like the Grimsmo Norseman in that they own a water jet company and they pretty much will water jet their parts. Or sorry, I say they. In this case, it's just Dave Curtis. He's doing all the work on it, and he water jets it, and there's a lot of hand fitting and a lot of hand work done in this, but it's all him doing the work. So in that sense, it's a custom knife, and I do consider the Norseman to be a custom knife as well. So that's a point of similarity, and that's something that's really awesome. I always like getting a custom knife. You're dealing with you know, a guy who really is going to stand behind his product, and you know, for the price, I think it's pretty cool. You're paying a price that you're getting. It's good that it's a custom knife. There are a lot of high-end productions that are around this price point. And along with that is his lifetime warranty that is unconditional. If you go and you baton this knife, or if you know, stab it in between two rocks and put your foot on it and break the blade, you can still send it in and he will fix it for you. It is an unconditional warranty. I don't recommend doing that because you'll be without a knife, and that's just, you know, punishing him for an awesome warranty that he has. But that is an option. That is an option that you have, and the fact that he has that unconditional warranty is really awesome. All right, now looking more specifically at the knife, I really like the stonewash that he put on both the blade and the handle. It's a very nice working finish, and on the blade you can see that it's kind of got this mirror finish. As you know, if you've been watching my videos for any length of time, you know that I really like those blades that kind of have a stonewash mirrored. Oh, this blade isn't really that clean. Sorry about that. But, you know, I really like those type of finishes. And this one, even though it isn't as polished as maybe the Swish Buoy or my Strider, it still is very mirrored, but still stonewash. So I really like that. And again, the handle's gonna hide wear very nicely. It's got this just very nice rugged look to it. I really like it. Now let's talk about what you just saw here, and that is the flipping action on this guy, and it is an amazing detent. This is one of the best detents I've felt. It is just amazing. It beats, and I think it actually, the flipping action at least beats my Southern Tolk or Mini Tolk. It beats the Norseman in my opinion. It is just a really perfect detent. And this is a long flipper tab, which we'll talk about later, but just to show you how good it is, I'm just not even going to use the length of the flipper tab, and it still just fires out super easily. It's not even a hard detent, but still it fires out reliably. It's really hard to get this to misfire. I haven't seen anyone misfire it. I gave it to a bunch of my friends here at college, and none of them were able to misfire it, and all of them flipped and were like, man, that felt really good. And these are non-knife guys, so whenever non-knife guys think it feels good, then you know you got something good going on. And he definitely does here. Coupled with that is the action. This has caged IKBS. I didn't crack this particular one open, but I saw one open at the show, and it was like a caged bearings, but I'm pretty sure IKBS is supposed to be free. Either way, he calls it IKBS, but it's some thrust bearings in there, and that gives you, you know, this free dropping action. Not quite as free as a Norseman, but you can definitely have some fun with it, and it definitely will fall under its own weight. And it's just is very smooth, so there's no bumps. You know, a lot of times with some ball bearings, you'll be able to move the blade around and you can feel the ball bearings rolling against the blade. A lot of Spydercos are like that, in my opinion. No problems with this guy. It just runs very smooth. Another thing that I really like about this knife that he changed from the old version is the blade steel. I believe he was using S35VN in his old blade steels. Or no, actually it was N690. And that's a really bad blade steel for the working knife, which I believe this is supposed to be. And anyway, they smoothed a CTS XHP. Same steel that is on the Swish buoy right here. Sorry, I almost blanked on the name. Which, by the way, if you haven't seen my review on that, I would recommend you check that out. But CTS XHP, it's not marked on here, but it is marked on the certificate of authenticity that you're given. That's just a great steel. I love CTS steels. I actually like them more than the CPM steels. Like this is CPM S35VN. I just find that CTS hold an edge better, hold a fine edge better. They're able to take a finer edge than CPM. So there's no complaints with this guy at all. This is in a very premier steel that is good for the price, I think. I think that even though you can get CTS XHP for like 85 bucks on the Chaparral lightweight, I think that on a $650 knife new like this one, it is definitely good to go. Another thing that was new on this version, kind of still on the blade, is the finger choil. The finger choil was added, I believe this is a Gen 4, but the finger choil was added I think around the Gen 2 or Gen 3, and it just, I always love whenever you have a finger choil on a knife. The Norseman kind of has that going for it. So does, let me see if I can grab it real quick. One of my favorite working knives, or actually probably my favorite working knife, the Strider SNG, gives you that nice finger choil to choke up on. So I like the fact that they added that, especially whenever it comes to ergonomics. And again, we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I always think that it's good to be able to get up there, especially when you have a working knife. Sometimes you need to get some really precise work done, and this gives you that option, so that's really great. The thing that's awesome about this knife is this spot pivot right here, which is the pivot, the stop pin, and the overtravel stop. So you see right here, it will not let the lock bar go over. The internal stop pin is housed in there, and it, you know, you can see that it's like this custom pivot, but it still is able to be used with a driver, which I wish it would have been Torx, to be honest. But still, it's nice that it's not like custom hardware like Microtech often does. But it functions as all of that. I think that's just really efficient, really well done. So is the lock bar insert. You can see the lockup on this knife is about perfect, right where you would want it. Really, really great. So anyway, I think that spot pivot that he developed, it is Dave Curtis's own design, and he has a patent on it, I believe. So I think that's really great about this. Another thing that I think was very excellent is how thin this is behind the edge. Just to get a comparison, here's my Swish buoy. Again, dirty blade. Let me try to get one that's a little bit cleaner. How about the Sebenza? You can see that it's not much thicker than the Sebenza. And when you look at the blade stock, and you compare the blade stocks, I mean, let's compare it to the SNG right here. It's about the same as the SNG. And then you look at the edges, and you can see that the F3 gets much thinner behind the edge, which means this is still going to be a good slicer. The fact that it has a thick blade stock excuse me, means it's not going to be quite as good of a slicer as something like your Swish buoy. but it is still going to slice really well. It's not going to, you're not going to be wedging stuff. It's not going to be like a Medford in that way. And I think that that's really, really nice. I think that's really well done. I think that is what I was not expecting on this knife that really led me to buying it, because I like the looks of it. I like the whole idea of it. That action was amazing. And then whenever I looked behind the edge, I was like, whoa, I was not expecting that. Especially when you consider the rest of the knife. So that is something that I think Dave did really well, and that I think makes this knife just that much better in my opinion. And then lastly is Dave gives you a lot of different options in making your knife. There are a bunch of different colors that you can make the titanium. The hardware as well. This is stainless steel hardware. So that actually isn't able to get anodized, but he has titanium hardware also that you're able to choose that you can get anodized the color. Same with the back spacer. There are a bunch of different handle materials, like the tack oval or something, where there's actually mill lines in it, and then like speed holes or something, and then there's the actual lines that don't go all the way through the titanium but kind of appear along the handle. I really think those are really awesome. He has like cheetah print. There are a bunch of different options. This is a custom knife, so you can do custom stuff to it. Same with the blade. There's Damasteel. There's a Wharncliffe option. There's a hand rub satin option. I mean, all of that just really make this knife really customizable. And if you don't like this particular look like I do, this is a little bit bland to me right here. I prefer stuff that's a little bit more artistic in a way. Even the flame titanium on the Strider. This just is very plain Jane. But, you know, maybe you like that, maybe you don't. Either way, he's going to have something for you in your style and your speed. So now let's talk about what's fair about this knife. This is the one exception that I was telling you about that doesn't fit in the excellent or poor category like everything else. And that is the ergonomics. On this knife, the ergonomics aren't necessarily bad, but they actually are pretty good when you choke up. But whenever you choke back, you feel like you're trying to find a place to just get actually comfortable. I think the swish buoy does a better job of that. The Strider, you just kind of know when you're there, and all the gaps in your hand are filled. In this one, just because you have this overlarge choil, you really have to choke back on it, and even then it just doesn't feel super at home. Whenever you choke up on the blade, that's less of an issue, but you know, whenever you're back, just the ergonomics aren't all that satisfying. So that's what's poor. They're not the best ergonomics, but nothing that's too bad. I could just see room for improvement, maybe changing the dimensions a little bit. I don't know, something like that. Now let's get on to the poor. What's actually objectively bad about this knife? So the first thing that I want to point out is this is a thick boy. You look at this right here and oh my gosh, like let's compare that to the Strider SNG. And the Strider SNG is not a thin knife. This is a very thick knife, and you can see that it's thicker than the SNG. Compare it to like something like the Swish Buoy, and it is much thicker. Let's actually get it even at the bottom. There you go. You can see this thing is much thicker. Sebenza, thicker. And then lastly, let's do something like the Norseman. Holy cow, is that thicker. This guy is just chunky. And you can probably just tell just from looking at this, yeah, this is chunky. And I think it's a little bit chunkier than it needs to be. I've actually looked at the dimensions, and this thing is thicker than the large. The larger knife is thinner than the smaller knife. That's a little confusing to me. Don't exactly know why that's a thing, but it is. And that means that this knife weighs 6 ounces. It is a brick in your pocket. It doesn't bother me too much, but I'm just kind of like, why? Why couldn't this be a little bit thinner? I mean, the blade is pretty thick too. We've already shown that. And yeah, I mean, that gives you some hard use, especially with the Spanto tip that he gives you. But, I mean, I don't understand why it needs to be that thick. Why? Yeah, I especially don't understand why the large is thinner. That just completely boggles me. And then the last thing that I don't particularly like about this knife is that huge flipper tab. Like, oh my gosh, let's just compare that to the Norseman real quick. Like, I mean, you can see the difference and how that's just like double the size of the Norseman flipper tab. I don't believe in like pocket peckers like Nick Shabazz talks about, because I don't really carry anything else in my knife pocket, but it just looks goofy to me. That just looks way too large, and it kind of throws off the aesthetics. And then even like, look, you can see part of the exact place that it locks up right here is sticking outside of the tang. I don't know if there are any necessarily pros or cons. I mean, maybe lint can get in there and mess up your lockup, but it's just odd to me, and I just don't like it. And I think that with this good of a detent, there's no need to make the flipper tab. Like, let me show you it again. I'm not using this big flipper tab. I'm just light switching from the very top corner, and it just still flies open. I don't understand the need for this crazy big flipper tab. It's not even needed for a guard. Like, you know, you can do with less than that for a guard. I really, really don't get it. And then I actually just have one question. This really, it doesn't go into either, but you know, this is compared to the XM18 a lot. I think Jim Skelton started that trend, and I don't know. I think this is a better knife than the XM18, but now it's also $650, and the XM18 you can pick up, or is $425 new. Let's just go new prices, because this guy you can pick up. I sold this one for $550, and you can pick up a XM18 for $350. And so yeah, it makes sense that this is a better knife. It's $200 more expensive. It's a ball bearing flipper. I mean, you could say this is a hard use knife, but it's got IKBS in there, so I don't exactly know how hard use it'll be. I mean, with the lifetime warranty, you have no problems with that. But anyway, it just kind of interests me that it's supposed to be this super hard use knife. And this is a lot of people's grails for some reason. I say for some reason. Okay, it's a great knife. But, I mean, for $650, there are a lot of, like, you know, the Shirogorov, I think, might be a little bit better for the price, for $650. But anyway, let's go into final conclusions real quick, or my version of final conclusions. And that is, I think this is an excellent knife. I mean, there's only a couple things wrong with it that I can find. I mean, it's got amazing maker's marks also. It's got really nice aesthetics, especially the lock side. I don't know why, but I especially like this side. It's got, you know, this great action. It slices well. It's got this nice working finish. It's super customizable. It is a custom knife. Just, you know, it's a little chunky, and it's got a huge flipper tab. But those two reasons are why I'm selling this knife, and that is because eventually I will be getting a large F3. I didn't want a large F3 at the time, but now I think that I'd really prefer it because it is thinner. It only weighs 0.3 ounces more than the medium. It's like, yeah, it's thinner. It weighs 0.3 ounces more. The flipper tab is going to be a little bit less weird, because on a smaller knife with a huge flipper tab, it's going to have the same size flipper tab, but just on a longer blade, so it kind of blends in a little bit more. It's a little bit less, you know, so, and I'm going to get one that's a little bit less plain, because this one is a little bit too plain for me. So I definitely recommend you pick one up. I sold this one like really quick in the moment, because I saw Nick Shabazz's Millet Knives Torrent went on sale, and with the Damasteel blade, the Odin's Eye, I should say, blade, and oh man, that just looks so awesome with the blue hardware, or the blue scale, and the carbon fiber. That is just a lot more kind of artistic, as we were talking about. But I just look at this knife and I'm like, man, I am gonna miss it, and I know I will. I don't know if I made a bad decision selling it yet. That will come with time, but I definitely plan on picking another one of these up in the large configuration. Well, I hope this review was helpful for y'all. I hope that maybe if you were on the edge of buying this, maybe this kind of pushed you over the edge, or maybe you decided that you were going to go for the large, or it just put this on your radar. Maybe you haven't heard of it, but you really like your Strider or your XM18. You just really wish your XM18 flipped and was on ball bearings, and maybe was in a little bit better steel, and you'd be willing to pay for it. Then definitely check out the XM18, or the Curtis Knives F3. XM18 too, I think that's a great knife as well. So that's where I'm going to end it. Check out the rest of my videos if you haven't, and I'll see you in the next one.